I'm sure by this point that many of you have either played through the new update in TDU Solar Crown, or at the very least have heard or seen the broad strokes of it, the major updates if you will, and it is a fairly major one in terms of, at least on the surface, some of the changes which have been made, of course most notably solo mode. The problem is solo mode doesn't really mean what a lot of people think it means. It does not mean offline mode, and to be honest I don't see offline mode being a thing anytime soon. You would think if that was going to be something which arrived in the game, they would have either already done it or at the very least already spoken about it and or confirmed it, so I do not realistically think that is going to happen. What this solo mode update, as well as a ton of other things which I am going to break down here in the video and give my thoughts on, is other issues which I have raised which thankfully are being addressed. So if we put to one side for a second the always online issue, which of course many games have these days, including Gran Turismo for example, what else has changed? Well, solo mode is something which, as I said, I had criticised in the past. You can't even pause a race or the car just rolls off the track into a tree, and not being able to quick restart against AI, etc., waiting in rooms against AI and then having random people join that you don't want to be racing against. It was just a stupid system. They have thankfully fixed that. Now you can select, as you'll see here on screen, between a pure AI versus you solo mode, which I think for many of us is probably what we'll have, at least in terms of just completing the events themselves, and then you can specifically choose to go into a multiplayer event, which is great. I love the fact that it is side by side. It means you don't have to completely load up an online mode or an offline mode. It's kind of both simultaneously there, and you just flick between the two depending on what you want. That I think is a cool idea. In terms of going up against the AI, that actually gives two further benefits. Number one, you can choose the AI difficulty. Now for my first outing racing against the AI, which you'll see here in an Audi TT, I selected just the middle of the road option to see what kind of difficulty it has, because often you'll find in games that quote unquote normal difficulty feels a bit broken to begin with, and then going up or down can sometimes feel kind of irrelevant. I find that they keep up a little bit, they kind of give you a bit of a challenge, and then they just really drop behind and it's an easy victory. So I think there's probably still a few teething things there that can be improved, but being able to change that at all, and to be honest, more importantly, just having a solo race against AI is a great update. The second part of that advantage is you can now pause, and not only pause, but you can quick restart the race without jumping back out to the map and loading up the race and doing everything all over again. That's fantastic. It shouldn't be an update, that should have already been in there, but the fact that it is at least now added is good. It means that every time one of these new updates drops, somebody who's now playing the game for the first time is having a way better experience than those of us who played from day one, which is a pretty sad state of affairs. That shouldn't be how it works, but that is unfortunately for many games how it seems to work these days. Other things which have been added include new vehicles. The Pininfarina Battista, which was technically already in the game as a prize car, you can now buy it. I actually did buy one. It was a total waste of money. I shouldn't have bought the car. I should have stuck with what I was originally going to do, which was save up for the Lotus Evija, because I don't really need any cars at this point. I just wanted to buy the Evija because I kind of like it. So if you are thinking of buying an electric hypercar, I'd just go for the Lotus, to be honest, but each to their own. In terms of other vehicles, there's the LaFerrari open-top version, the Aperta. There's the Aston Martin Victor. Again, you'll have seen that briefly at the start of the video. And of course the DeLorean. Bit of a weird choice there, but sure, why not, I guess. In terms of other stuff, there's now customizable license plates, which is cool on the surface, but you have to pay to convert those plates, which I'm not a fan of. I think it does sometimes feel like the game is trying to squeeze every penny out of you to do every little thing. It's one of the reasons why I barely ever paint the cars in the game compared to what I'd usually do, because when you've got to pay like 30, 50, whatever thousand credits every time you want to change something, it really does feel stupid, to be honest, especially when the game pays out so slowly once you've completed all of the big stuff. In terms of other new events, there are finally convoy missions, what we used to call car deliveries, or what many of us still do call car deliveries. To be honest, I can make an entire video just on this because it is a mess. The traffic pops in and out in the distance. You will again see this, and it pops out from a pretty close distance, so it's not like you can just put it down to the rendering problems. It's real close. When traffic randomly pops out, you'll have stupid taxis and cars pulling out in front of you, and of course the older games did suffer from that as well, but you'd think they'd have moved past that at this point. I have not as yet completed any driving missions without at least damaging the car in some kind of way, and that bugs me, not because I think it's a bad idea, of course that's the whole point, but because what they classify as damaging the car is pretty pathetic. You'll literally like tap a pole, and this is not like a street lamp or something we're talking about, it's literally a plastic pole that you'll see me hit at some point here in the video, and immediately takes like a quarter of the total price off. Now is that realistic? Technically yes, because if you hit a pole at speed in real life, it will destroy the car's front end if it's a classic or whatever. But this is a game, and even in the older days of TDU, it wasn't quite that bad. So I think that is a bit dumb, to be honest. I also don't like the fact that, at least for now, it looks like it's pretty much a cap of 40 grand for delivering a car regardless of the value of the vehicle, which is pretty sad. It also has a kind of Forza Horizon-esque approach to a new certain mission called navigation missions. I would call them route finders, really, personally, and that is that it just gives you a random point on the map. You start from a certain location and it doesn't tell you the route. You've just got to find your own way there with a compass, which is a cool idea, and again, that lends itself more to the off-road side of things. It feels fine. You know, I didn't particularly love it. I've done one of those so far and I got the gold first time, so sure, that's great. But yeah, it's not really my kind of thing. I feel like that's much more an off-road expedition kind of fun factor. We also now have clan stores apparently in the game. I can't say I really spend much time on the clan stuff. That brings us to the point of buying real estate, because of course this is something which people are continually bringing up, houses and stuff in the game. It's always been a huge part of TDU. That is not in this update, but I will add it here in the video. They have confirmed that is coming. We don't know when, but they have confirmed that in the future, real estate is returning in Solar Crown, so that's at least something, I guess. Personally, I've never really cared too much about the houses beyond just the garage space. The fact that you don't need to worry about the garage space, I actually view as kind of an advantage, because instead of jumping around different houses to find what car is in what garage, you can just jump to any location and grab whatever car you want. But sure, I get the appeal of buying a house. They're also updating the live events to be on a weekly rotation. Again, I don't really play the game often enough to really care about live events, because most of them don't really feel to me like they're that much worth the effort. And this again brings me to this kind of common issue with a lot of racing games, it seems, these days. And it's not just stuff like Nacon with TDU. Even as high as Polyphony with Gran Turismo, a lot of career mode stuff feels really boring and repetitive and grindy just for the sake of saying, oh look, we've given you something to do. And it's just these super repetitive events with very little to actually do, which is kind of a shame. It doesn't really give you much impetus to go back and do them. They've also improved various crashes, server issues. Of course, it's kind of an ongoing thing with this game. Render distances, apparently, which kind of flies in the face of what I said about the driving missions. UI inconsistencies, which is kind of weird, because when I logged into the game again today, there was a really weird backlight behind my player in the hotel, and also some of the menus and some of the kind of directional arrows that are shown in races. You might even see some of this shown are kind of like glitching out, so I guess they've improved stuff, but that was not happening before and now it is, so it's kind of gone the other way on that one. It's caused issues in my case rather than fixing them, and apparently they've fixed a bunch of different bugs across the PS5, the Xbox and the PC. So for me, as always, it's kind of almost there. That's kind of the story of TDU Solar Crown so far. It's always almost there. You've got some great ideas, you're pushing forward, you're technically getting better, but it's never quite there. There's always some issue that still remains, and of course, you could logically say that eventually it must be perfect. Then if you continue that route, well, sure, but then by the time it is finally perfect, being an online-only game, how much of the game is going to be left? That's always a strong argument against that, and of course against any game which relies on those updates. You never needed to, for example, update TDU 1 or 2. You had DLC and stuff, but you didn't need to update the game because it was, well, a finished game to begin with. And in terms of what to expect from the future, they have also released notes of what they're still developing at the moment in various stages of completion that's still to come. They're working on better collision and suspension physics, apparently, better physics in terms of wet roads, throttle response, clutch response, transmission and handbrake as well, and also further improvements to lighting, rendering, graphics. I know the graphics are still a big issue for many people, and to me it's a similar issue to what I always had with TDU2, which is the colours pop just a little bit too much and look almost cartoonish, whereas the first game, as crazy as it is given how old it is, kind of looks the most grounded and the most realistic compared out of the three. Another thing which they've actually proposed doing, which I think is a fantastic idea, and I really hope they do this, and again, if Polyphony were listening they should definitely take notes, is they're considering doing a dev diary. What exactly that would entail, of course, is up in the air, if they even do it at all. Anything that gives the public, us who are enjoying the game, hating the game, or somewhere in between, and of course the worst place to be of all is apathetic, because it's when people don't care anymore. That's where the real problem is for developers, because then why would you even play it? Knowing something about what's going on, I think, is always an advantage. If it means that you're going to put out something that some people will see as an excuse, it doesn't matter. Those kind of people will always say that. As long as you have some kind of dialogue going with your community to show what's happening, what's changing, what you're trying to do, acknowledging their issues, which of course Nacon have, to be fair, done a good job of, it's following up on those things. Definitely a mixed bag. There is a lot to be happy to see here, but it's always kind of clouded by some of the bigger, broader issues which people have, and as I alluded to earlier on in the video, I think that one big overarching issue that many people are always going to have is the online-only mode. In the case of Gran Turismo, I don't mind so much, because for the most part the server works pretty well, at least in my experience in GT Sport and 7, but of course, as with older games shutting down, that is always a big threat as well, so it swings and roundabouts in terms of it working well, but still having its downsides. That's it for my thoughts though on the March update, if you will, in TDU Solo Crown. I will eagerly await what happens next, and hopefully this improvement continues. So of course, stick around for more TDU, check out the previous stuff which I've done for Solo Crown as well if you're interested, and thanks for watching.